One come all, those short, those tall. There may be some clowning around, but you'll get an earful all in all. No need for waivers, no need for saviors. Don't be frightened, do not hide. Enter now and enjoy the ride. So step right up, those far and near. The attraction is set. It's Ear for Fear.
Hi, welcome to the Ear for Fear podcast. This is the podcast that talks about scary movies or movies trying to be scary. I'm Rick, and I got Jake in the house.
What's shaking, everybody?
How's it going, man?
Not too bad. How about you?
It's going. It's 2025.
Yeah.
Which sounds really weird. Like when when the new year hits and you have to write the date out. I did that the other day. I'm like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
I have to put a 25 at the end of it.
I haven't been back at work yet since the new year started, so that's going to be a problem for me on Monday.
Oh, you haven't?
No. I've been off since the 1st.
Oh, okay.
Since the 1st,
that's not too bad. Yeah, take a little time off.
Yeah, the boss made me.
The boss made you? Had you not taken any vacation in a bit?
It had been a little while, but
Really?
It was getting to the point. Well, there's a lot of things moving around. There's a lot of new people.
Oh, yeah.
What's the word I'm looking for? Just moving things around.
Yeah, I get you. Well, welcome, dude. It's been a bit. I don't remember the last time you came out, I'll be honest. I should have looked to see what last episode we did, but it's been a while because when I say last year, in 2024, we took a big break, like a little hiatus, and then we only did like maybe, I don't know,
sometimes it's good.
8-10 I think the plan was to do one a month. Like,
that's good.
It's crazy, man. Like, we've been doing this now for like I don't know if it's been 4 or 5 years, but it was like, oh, let's do an episode a week. Oh, let's do an episode every 2 weeks. And then it got to a point where it's like, yeah, that's just way too much.
Yeah, that's a lot of
and
talking.
let's do it is a lot of talking. And I'm on every episode. And it's a lot of work. And I'll be honest, like I'm probably sharing way too much, but it's stressful to sit here sometimes and find stuff to say. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but it's very kind of draining a little bit.
I hear you.
I notice when I'm done with the episodes, I'm tired, Yeah. And I've been on every episode, and so it's I
think it's because we're getting to the age where we are starting to take a lot of comfort and solace in that you don't really have to say anything, so you can just keep your mouth shut.
Dude, I would love that if I didn't have to
and
talk.
get through life.
Well, today you and I are doing 2024's Werewolves.
No more guns, no more gods. Those things are coming for us.
You like that?
Love it. It's a nice little cut.
Yeah, nice little cut, huh? I had to learn how to do it. It's Werewolves. Let's see. You want 2 scientists try to stop a mutation that turns people into werewolves after being affected by a supermoon the year before.
The supermoon.
The supermoon. It's
every
a
time,
bitch, right? Yeah, I'm trying to cut back on the supermoon. Yeah. Full spoilers.
1, 2, spoilers coming for you.
I was thinking, I don't know if there's anything's really being spoiled other than I think my disappointment in this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Okay, I think I do know what it is. Because it went into the theaters, I had some higher hopes for this. Sure. I didn't have like, oh man, this is going to be phenomenal.
Yeah.
I didn't, but then before I went and saw it, I looked at IMDb because I do that. And it had it at a 4.5, and I'm like, that can't be right. And then I watched the movie, and I'm like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. It's if you go into it knowing what it's trying to be, and that is just fun pulp. It's not trying to really make you think about the genre of werewolves, and even not make you give it some kind of a scientific cause or anything like that. It's just it's a pulp movie. I thought it was fun. I didn't think it was, groundbreaking or world changing.
No, not at all. I love werewolves. I gravitate more towards werewolf movies than I would say vampire movies.
Sure.
There are a handful of vampire movies that I like, but I think with vampire movies, they start to get into that goth lore and the love story, and I'm just not into that.
Yeah.
If I wanted that, I'd watch some sort of romantic comedy or
Outlander or something.
I don't know, and it's not my thing with werewolves. I think I especially love the idea when werewolves are on their hind legs. Something about it, like, the howling, of course. I think Dog Soldiers comes to mind. Even I think there's a movie called Howl that we did an episode on. I like that sort of werewolf movie. I think it looks more menacing and evil and just in a sense cooler to me when they're on their hind legs.
Yeah.
And this was that. But I felt like there just wasn't enough of that with me. Like, I felt the transformations were really cool.
Sure.
Some of the practical effects were really cool.
Sure.
But then what lost it for me was the story was kind of lame.
Out there, man.
It's lame. I don't know. We're supposed to so the supermoon hit a year earlier, and did it turn everybody into werewolves, or anyone that saw the moon? If you were inside your house and let's say you were sleeping, and the super moon came and you weren't infected because you were inside your home and you didn't. You know what I mean?
I think there's that, but they also kept making this reference to people as being he's a year one or he's a first year, and I'm like, well, isn't everybody a first year?
Well, yeah, because it was just a year earlier.
And were there people that did not transform because they just don't have that particular gene? Like, that's what I thought at first going into the first few minutes of it, and then realized that most of the people that didn't turn were the people that aren't going to turn. And then suddenly everybody turns.
That's where I think I had an issue. Like, I don't think it was explained well enough for me. Like, I didn't, like, I thought, okay, like, I forget what movie it was where, like, okay. So, for instance, in one of the Marvel movies, when half the population disappears.
Sure.
Okay. So, I don't know why half of, that, like, say if it was you and I, right, and you disappeared and I didn't. Well, why? What caused that?
I mean, and in the Marvel movies, it's pretty clear that it was just random. It was random.
So in this, is it random, or is it they have something in their DNA that when they see the supermoon, they turn?
Sure. And then, they kind of steal a little bit of lore from vampires in the sense that you have to now be exposed to the supermoon.
Yeah.
You have to go out, and then they create what was absolutely amazing. What was it? Moon screen.
I wrote it down. Moon screen.
Moon screen. Love it.
Moon screen. I thought it was a goofy name, but I love the fact that one of the scientists goes, "Can we come up with a better name for that?"
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, you had a year, and that was what you came up with.
And they just came up with the moon screen as a plot device so that they could have people being out in the moon that they didn't want to turn at the moment.
Yes.
So that was it. It was just a plot device.
Yes. But I didn't, to me, it was like, I don't know, maybe, like, I wouldn't watch this again. But because we only watched it once, was there dialogue that we just missed that explained a little more? I don't think there was, because I think we're giving this movie more credit than that.
Yeah,
because I don't think that's the case.
There was a couple of scenes where they seem to be starting to figure that out, like when Lou Diamond Phillips is looking at it under the microscope and he's trying to go on, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe there will be something interesting here. And they're like, is it parasitic?
Yeah,
and you're like, well, and then before you know it, nope, forget all that. Let's just go. Chaos.
And then they start, because the moon screen, they hadn't tested it before, obviously, because it happened a year earlier. So they got, what was it, like 3 or 4 people that decided to volunteer to be case studies, and
either that or they volunteered. Some of them look like they were there against their will, though, or some. Like,
there was the one woman. It looked like she. I mean, obviously, you could tell she had second thoughts.
Sure.
I don't want to do this. But then there was 2 of them that looked crazy, like they got him out of some hospital or something.
Yeah.
There's some
Those
mental
were the guys
hospital.
that turned last year and dug it.
Yeah, they liked it a lot. So, but okay, we'll volunteer for the sake of this, and let's see what works. And they developed this
Serum.
This serum. But see, okay, so this is the thing. The serum did what? The moon screen, I get it. You spray it on your skin, and it somehow blocks you from the super moon.
Sure. But
what did the serum do? I don't know what that was about.
And if you stop to think about it for just a second, moonlight is not different than sunlight. It's just the sunlight that's reflecting off the moon. So was this like banana boat sunblock? Is that all they used?
I don't know.
And why wouldn't regular sunblock work? Because you're still getting the light off the moon, which is actually sunlight bouncing off the moon.
Yeah.
So.
And what made the moon so super? Like, did it, when you were watching it, did it seem extravagant moon? Like, it just seemed like a normal moon to me.
A super moon is a real thing. And unless I'm mistaken, it's when the rotation of the moon brings it closer to the Earth than.
So it's close. Okay. So,
that could be wrong.
You're probably right.
But hey, they're making stuff up. I can make stuff up.
Yeah, you can. I mean, it sounds great. Yeah. Like, I don't know enough about that to argue it. I mean,
and then they've got some beginnings of some real good character development too, where you have the scientist who's got her, husband or whatever is in there. You're like, first of all, like that just wouldn't fly in any kind of scientific experiment. No. She's way too close to this particular project. And there was some other character development. The Wesley Frank Grillo's, who I really thought it should have been his wife, but it's his brother's wife. Her brother died in some kind of an accident, and she went through some real. Like, it seemed like there was going to be some character development there. Like, she wasn't ready, and she really needed to pull herself together and survive the night. And then, without anything really happening, she is suddenly terrified, and then a little later, she's pulled it together, and she's, they were trying to give you character development there, and they just either abandon it.
They failed. I will tell you this. Like, so Wesley is Frank Grillo, like, yeah. So it appeared to me that his brother was maybe a first responder and died last year when this happened.
Possibly.
Is that?
I got the vibe that it might not have been last year. That it might have been some other
time.
Yeah, other emergency that he didn't make.
Okay, and so Wesley is he feels his job is to take care of his brother's wife and his little daughter. I think her name is it Emma? Is it Emma? No, I'm sorry. Yeah. Is it Emma?
Yeah, the daughter's name is Emma.
Okay, because the wife's name is Lucy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I get that. But it's not believable that he's some sort of like scientist. Like, he's just this roided out guy.
Yeah.
Like, he reminded me of a poor man Hugh Jackman. Did he not?
I always saw him as like a contemporary of John Bernthal.
Okay.
I like Frank Grillo a lot.
Do you?
Part of the reason why I was excited about this movie was I like Frank Grillo and everything I see him in, and I'm glad that he got to be like a star. And
Yeah.
But this wasn't it.
No, this wasn't it. Like, it wasn't believable. I'm down if he's going to kick some werewolf ass. I could see that. I didn't believe that he was a scientist and that he's part of this little group that's trying to solve this werewolf problem. Like, they've developed this. It wasn't believable for me.
They're like, bro, you're doing too much. Like, he could be, a special forces guy who's there providing security, but no, he's not just a special forces guy. He's also a scientist that's in the middle of the whole thing.
Yeah, it wasn't.
While at the same time, he has to go to his brother's house to set all the booby traps and get the house ready.
So I'll tell you my issue. And again, if we are to go into this thing that this is kind of like just a B movie, excuse me, like, it didn't come by the trailer. And again, I think it was misleading for me because it hit the theaters. If this went straight to, say, whatever, DVD or video on demand, okay. Sure. Like if I was flipping through Netflix or Shudder and I saw Werewolves, I'm like, and I watched it, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. The fact that it hit the theaters, to me, I think I was expecting more. But this, to me, reminded me of, like, if I was flipping channels on the Sci-Fi Network, and the same network that brought you, like, Sharknado. And I'm not saying this is as bad as Sharknado. No. I'm not saying that at all. But it's not that much better than it.
It looks like it looked expensive to make.
I don't know what the budget was. It at times it felt expensive, and at other times it was like they wanted to do this, and they couldn't do that because they didn't have the time nor the money. Like if Roger Corman was still alive, like he would be a producer on this one.
But
like
if I were watching this movie and it was just on and I had no idea who was behind it and everything, I would have thought the way just the camera works, I would have thought it was Michael Bay Transformers. Like that's what it looked like to me. That's what the picture looked like to me.
Yeah.
And then of course, you got your J.J. Abrams lens flares all over the place. The lens flares were everywhere.
They were everywhere, and I didn't have an issue with that. I actually thought some of the lens flares were kind of cool because we're dealing with the full moon, and I was okay with some of that.
Yeah.
There were other things like I'm like, okay, well, like there wasn't a lot of werewolves. Like if this super moon affected everybody, is it because everyone's inside because they know it's coming? And they're like, well, if we stay inside and we're not subjected to the super moon, we're okay. Like was that and then it's like and it's like, well, you knew this was coming, and I felt like no one was really prepared. Like I understand that that Wesley, he got his sister-in-law's house. I kind of prepared as much as possible, but still didn't feel that prepared to me.
No, it exactly, that was it. Like, where do you get an industrial-sized barrel of bear spray or bear mace or whatever it was? And you have all of that, and you have, like, bear traps in the front yard. You have barbed wire wrapped around, razor wire wrapped around the fences and everything. And then this is my big thing with the whole movie is, how many shotgun shells did he leave her for the shotgun? Because I feel like
10, maybe
less than a box.
Yeah, there was less than a box. Like that's the thing. If you're leaving her to do your scientist thing,
why not bring them with you?
That's what I was thinking. Bring them with you. This is coming. There's got to be a room that is werewolf proof.
Sure.
That wasn't a case.
They live next door to the nut job.
The nut job
guy who's literally spraying like bullets toward their house with automatic weapons. You're like, and all he does is go over to the next door and be like, "Hey, man, knock that out." You're like, it's probably not the safest place for them, man. Bring them with you.
Like to me, I'm like watching like the everything that transpired in the house with Lucy and Emma. The acting was awful for me. It just none of it was believable. It was annoying. And I didn't care. I honestly, it sounds terrible. I didn't care if anything happened to them. That shouldn't happen. We should care about those two characters.
I agree. And those, it just seemed like they only existed to have something an objective for him to get back to. Like that was the only reason.
It was lazy. It was lazy. And
they had really interesting questions brought up too. Like who was the neighbor girl, Reagan?
Oh, Reagan. Yeah.
So she's here, take some batteries for your house. Why not get your mom and you into the same house as us? Because you know that's going to come up later. But it does ask really interesting questions. And that is that after the full moon comes out, you do not answer the door for anybody. And so, of course, they bring that scenario in because it's a test for the character. But it was going to be, if it was going to be anybody, it was going to be the neighbor girl that you obviously liked.
For sure. We knew she was going to die.
And everybody, too, was kind of like, oh, I'm just popping some popcorn. Mom, where you at?
Dude, she was.
And everybody's like kind of half-assing the preparation for it.
When they knew this was going to happen again.
Exactly.
Like, I was thinking about this. If I knew that, if this transpired and I knew, I don't know, 1 billion people turned into werewolves and all these people died and all these things. And a year later, I'd be preparing. I'd create a safe house, like something. If I had to, if I couldn't move and I had to stay where I was at, I would build a safe room, like a safe room that a werewolf couldn't penetrate.
Sure.
And then I only have to be in there for 10 hours or 12 hours, and I'm good.
Not just fence boards boarding up the windows that a human being could rip off.
Yes.
But so what would you do? Let's go over this. Like what would you do to prepare if you know that anybody at any point tonight can turn into a werewolf?
If it was just, and my sole purpose is to protect my family.
Sure.
I am spending that from when it happened the year prior to now. I'm spending that time creating a room, and I don't know. It's steel, and it could be under the house. It could be it could be under the house. And if we have to be uncomfortable for 10 hours while this is happening, that's fine. I know that particular room is going to be soundproof. Okay, so they're not going to hear us. So let's say they decide to get into the house, but we're in this room.
Yeah.
They can't hear us. They're not going to be able to smell us.
Yep.
And yeah, it's going to suck for 10 or 12 hours, but that, to me, why wasn't that a thing? Like, I know you can build that.
Sure.
And you sure in the hell can build it within a year.
Yeah.
But for the sake of the movie, right?
The plot has to happen.
It has to happen.
One thing I think we are being way too hard critiquing the plot and the character, motivations and things like that. This is supposed to just be a fun werewolf movie. We're still going to pick it apart because we're assholes. But first things first is, why would you want to be around all these people? Like, you've got a crazy neighbor. You got neighbors across the street. Like, get out of town, man. Like,
you could go somewhere, right?
You could go camping where you don't have another human being within 2 hours of you.
I think my only concern with that is,
you sacrifice your...
Because, if you're camping, the chance of the moon, you being subjected to the moon is greater than, let's say, you in your house and I don't know. I just feel like when you're camping, you're outside.
Yeah.
That'd be my only concern with that.
But you've got months to prepare. You find a cave.
Yeah.
Or build a shack,
yes,
something
a
like
cave,
that.
yeah,
a shack, to be fair, like a shack's going to be a lot easier for a werewolf to break into.
That is true.
But at least get out of the city, at least get out of the suburbs.
Something. But it felt to me that everyone was scrambling like an hour before sunset.
Yeah, exactly.
It made it just, again, I get it because of the movie it is. Like, this is, I think, my like I said, I thought it was going to be something a little different. I am fine with campy. I am fine with cheesy. I'm fine with B-movie stuff.
Absolutely.
I felt, though, that they were playing this at times too serious to be that. Yeah. Like, to me, I wanted more comedy. If that's
more
what...
wink, wink at the camera.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, give me that, and then I'm on board. But if you... And this is my problem with a lot of movies. And if anyone out there that's listened to the podcast, they know how I think. I'm okay if you pick a lane and you stay in it.
Agreed.
And you do that, whether you execute it well or not, you stuck in that lane, and I'm fine with it. You're consistent. That's what's important to me. Consistent, whether as a whole I like the movie or not, is irrelevant. I can find enjoyment in that. With this, it was like, okay, you gave me some good practical effects, but then at other times it was crap. And then there was really nothing funny about it. There was no, give me some one line, we got the one-liner from.
It should have been fun, and it
Yes,
wasn't. It took itself too seriously.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and that was my problem with it. Like, I could get on board all those other things, but give me something goofy, like there could have been, like there was a scene where Wesley, I think he stabs one of the werewolves with like a big metal rod, and blood is squirting all over him. And then the next scene, they're running, he has no blood on him. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, like, dude, it's stupid shit like that.
I tend to be more forgiving about something like that. Like, it could have happened off camera that he wiped it on his shoulder or something like that.
Sure, I guess that's possible.
And that just goes to show you, like, when you're making a film, like, the continuity people, like, really have an important job to do.
Oh, for sure.
To, do cuts and scrapes and all the stuff that are on the face landing in the right spot, even though the shooting was weeks apart.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think we're doing a service to the film to be analyzing it like that. I think it's one of those films that it's not meant to be analyzed. It's just meant to be experienced, have a good time, go check it out.
Yeah.
But it did make the big mistake of taking itself too seriously.
It did. And
it needed more jokes. It needed more funny.
More campiness to it. Like, I don't even care if I can tell it's someone in like a rubber suit.
Yeah.
I don't care about it, as long as there is some cool, like, just some funny shit or some, like, I will tell you, and again, I don't want to totally crap on the movie, because there are some things that I enjoyed. I enjoyed some of the practical effects with werewolves. I thought they were really cool. I I thought there was a scene where I think it was him and that scientist, and they had to like walk past a bunch of werewolves when they were all by the cars, all the abandoned cars and stuff.
Sure.
And I was cool with that. Like I enjoy that stuff. So there was some things here, but then there was the scene towards the end of the movie. Was it the neighbor who was running and it jumped because he was in the truck, and it was towards the end of the movie. He was trying to get back to Lucy and Emma.
Sure.
And he was in the truck and he was driving towards the werewolves, and one jumped and like flew through the air, right? And I was like, it's stupid, but that's the cheesiness I thought we were gonna get. And then the whole thing where he's like, okay, well, you know, we still have like say 15 or 20 minutes before the moon goes away, and he's the neighbor. I forget what the neighbor's name was. Was it Cody? Cody. And Cody's gonna get inside the house, and so I'm gonna have to do this speech to my niece, and, you know, grow up to be something great and all this other things. And then he goes outside and he turns into a werewolf and they fight.
Yeah.
And the fight was so quick.
The fight was bad. It's like where they're just kind of grabbing each other, and then suddenly he rips his head off. Like, okay, they were trying to do that, you know, with practical effects. But in the end, from the different things that you've seen, that was where you were supposed to really blow us away. Yeah. And it just didn't.
It didn't. Like, I would have loved like some cool werewolf fight. Yeah. Like, it doesn't have to be like, say, the fight in They Live or something, but give me a few minutes of some cool effects. To me, it's probably just time and money. Yeah. They didn't have any of it, right? Like,
and they didn't do as good a job as they could have of establishing the rules of everything. So whatever the plot needed the werewolves to be, they were at any given moment. So it's like somebody turns into a werewolf and they become an animal with no, you know, higher brain function whatsoever. But then suddenly the werewolves have retained a little bit of their humanhood, and they can start making decisions where, hey, let's go kill the cameras. Yeah. Or hey, let's look up. I'm gonna go climb that power, you know, pole and kill the power to the place. So it's okay if there was something left. If there was something there, but it didn't get established until the point that it was actually carried out.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're like, oh okay, he still knows what a camera is. And
well, it was like when Cody turned, right, and he knew the neighbor. Like, you could tell there's this probably not a great relationship with Lucy, and even Wesley for that matter. And so, but he remembered that once he turned, and then he got hit with like the bear spray, and then he held a grudge now, and he was going after their house.
Yeah. It was them he wanted. He didn't just say, hey, this isn't a soft target anymore, let me just keep moving. Yeah. It was, no, he wants them.
Yeah. And so, there were no really set rules, and I don't know, like,
and the rules are okay. I think rules are important when it comes to, something like this. There's one bit of writing. I read an article when I was in high school, and I might have brought this up on a previous podcast, but it was an interview with Clive Barker. And Clive Barker was saying that when you're writing fiction, you set a rule, you know, something extraordinary is going to happen, like people become werewolves. Everything that you do after that has to be a legitimate response to that, not just people who are like, oh yeah, here, whatever, it happens.
Yeah.
So everything that happens on the periphery around that has to be an honest response, because the worst thing, he said, that you can be in fiction is a liar. So if you're telling the lies, it's some stuff like that where they set the rules, but then the rules change based on what part of the plot you're in, and that's where they did a bad job. They should have sat down and said, okay, we're making a werewolf movie. This is what's causing the werewolves to happen. Everything else has to be an honest reaction or an honest, explainable reaction to this thing happening. But they were inconsistent with that.
Yeah. And even if the movie was, if, like I said earlier, if you're consistent, I can get on board with that. Like, establish these things. And then as long as you follow that, whether the movie, when it's all said and done, is kind of crap, I at least will respect that.
Sure.
And I couldn't with this. Like I said, for the most part, this was a big dud for me. A few cool parts here and there. I'm a sucker for practical effects and werewolves. So, like it wasn't I've seen far worse movies, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I don't know. I think I maybe expected a little more than this. Like I knew this wasn't going to be like a 9 or a 10 out of 10. I was hoping for like a 6 or a 7. And I got I would say IMDb is 4.5 was probably about what
So what would you say are your top 3 gripes with this film?
The acting I thought was bad. The character development, when I think they could have had they could have taken some of the characters and made me care more. Sure. I wanted to care more for Lucy and Emma, and I didn't care at all.
Yeah.
I felt that anything that transpired in that house was boring, and I couldn't get on board with it. I thought their dialogue was terrible. Some of the stuff like 1 second Emma is freaked out and the other second she's like, all right, like the little girl.
She's trying to repeat to whatever the words were that her husband had given her. This is my home. I will protect my home. Yeah. And then 1 second she's saying it and be like, this is bullshit, whatever, no. And then later on she's like, oh, now she's saying it again and she means it. But nothing really happened in between that.
No, nothing. And then it's like, I don't know. I wanted more werewolves. I wanted to see. Now, it doesn't have to be a lot more, but give me some more. If everyone turns, if they're infected by the super moon, why did we only see like 8 to 10 werewolves? Now, to me, it's probably a money and a time thing. This movie, if this was a big budget movie, this would have been, like, to me, in my eyes, like, we don't see it a year later. We see it when it transpires. Yep. People are chilling at a restaurant or whatever the heck it is, and they're at work or whatever. And all of a sudden, the supermoon hits and they turn into werewolf. Like if you're we're talking like, I don't know when the moon, I don't know what time, but let's say you're at a restaurant and the supermoon hits and you're outside and you're chilling, and all of a sudden your date turns into a werewolf and rips your head off. Yeah. Like that's kind of a cool thing. Like that would
have been interesting.
That would be cool to see, right? Like a big budget.
But I would have still like complained about it, because I would have said, why are these people out on a fucking date when this is going on today?
But I'm saying a year earlier, when they don't know this is going to happen. So this is like they are not prepared for a super moon and what the repercussions are going to be.
Interesting.
So that's the movie I would like to see, right? Like all hell it just goes crazy just like that, and then people are dealing with it.
And maybe there's, it didn't all happen on one night. Like somebody turned a week ago, and there's this, government group that Frank Grillo could have been part of.
There you go.
Where they're like, this guy just turned into a werewolf, and then they're analyzing the blood, and they killed this guy, but they're analyzing it and they're like, this is a mutation. This is a mutation that everybody has. Yeah. And we've got a supermoon coming up. It's happening more and more as we lead up to the supermoon. Yeah. And then they can have the same basic setup where there's a small group of people that know that there's a good chance everything's going to go to hell tonight, but the public at large is not aware of it.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting.
See, that would be a cool movie. I don't know, could that be done with a big budget? Would someone get behind that is the question.
Well, somebody got behind this. Of course they would have got
behind
behind
that. At a bigger scale, right?
Yeah.
Like
I think got to cut to Paris and have somebody getting, eaten at the base of the Eiffel Tower, and then you go to, the Sydney Opera House. Just do a little thing that shows it's happening everywhere.
Yeah. I don't know.
The thing that annoyed me the most with it is that they set up so many interesting things that they never paid off. They've got the fact that there's one of the doctors working on its husband is one of the experimentees. Yeah. And then nothing, really comes of that. You have the part in the plot where they're trying to get through the city and they go down into the tunnels and there's this whole group of people down there and you're like, oh, who are these guys? Have they figured something out that that our leads haven't figured out yet? And it's like, nope, that just happens and they move on from there. It's, it seemed like they were setting things up that could have been very interesting that they just, passed off. The way, who was the doctor that was with them? Was that Dr. Vasquez? Or was it Amy?
Was it Amy? Yeah. Amy was the one, her husband, or love interest. I think it was her husband. He was one of the one.
And so her death, the way if anybody gets pulled off the camera, she gets just yanked right out of there, and he's like, oh no, well I better just keep going. And you're like, in my head, I'm like, okay, that's the kind of death you have when you're gonna pull someone back. Later they're gonna show back up and they're actually okay, but nope.
None of that.
That was it. That was her death. She's gone.
She's gone. And you could tell they had a long, you could tell there is like this backstory with them where they've worked together for many years and probably have seen other bad stuff that they've dealt with. And so there's that history with them. And then, she gets pulled and then he leaves. Yeah. Like, it's just, again, is it just a matter of time and money?
I think,
I don't know, man.
I don't know if it's time or money. It just strikes me as something that they may not have had a solid script when they started filming. Like, they're just like, hey, we need a werewolf movie, so let's make a werewolf movie. Here's a rough script. And as they're going, they're constantly revising the script as you go. And then after a while, you just kind of lose track of, you don't have a set script to go on. Yeah. That's what I think. I haven't done any research into the making of this movie.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Really, it's not a movie that should be analyzed like we're doing. We're not being fair to the film. I think that's just a movie that you're supposed to watch and be like, oh, there was a cool part. It was a werewolf. It was a fun werewolf movie. And we're kind of sitting here trying to analyze it like it's Citizen Kane or something like that. We're not doing it any favors by this, but
we aren't. I think if I would say if don't pay for it, obviously. If it's on some sort of free streaming service where you don't, go ahead, check it out. Don't expect a lot. Then I think you're okay. I think I expected a little more than what I got, especially since it hit the theaters. And I'll be honest, the trailer made it look kind of not as B movie as it was for me.
Trailers are really good at that.
They are good at that. So if anything, they did a good job of that. They kind of suckered me in.
I think Hollywood as a whole has gotten really, really good at making trailers, and just the quality of the pictures is just dropping off. I think Hollywood's kind of at a weird spot right now where they're about to collapse, and they're just like, okay, we got this movie's done. Just put it in the theater so that we can have something for the week of this and the week of that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's turned into content, not art.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, but that's kind of our society as a whole, especially with social media, right? It's just content.
Agreed. Yeah, it's just content. It's just we needed some IP to put out and justify the budget we had because some guy that doesn't know about movies says, okay, we got to make a movie release in this place and just do it. Just do the thing, whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's Werewolves. Anything else, man?
No.
I think we talked more on it than I thought we would. I'll be honest. I think we gave this about 10 or 15 more minutes than it probably deserved.
I want to repeat the disclaimer that this movie didn't need to be analyzed the way that we're doing it. We're not.
So you are
fair,
welcome.
But check it out. It's a decent little B movie.
If anything, if you're into cool practical effects, especially with werewolves, then I think you'll like aspects of this movie, parts of this movie.
Parts of this movie were good.
Yeah. So cool, man. I think I don't got anything more on werewolves.
Well, do you think there's going to be a sequel? Because I feel like there's really going to be a sequel.
There could be a sequel, and that may go straight to the Sci-Fi Channel or something. Maybe. That's possible. Well, cool, dude. Well, thanks for coming out, man. That's it. That's all we got, everyone. Take care. You listened all the way to the end. We appreciate that. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Ear for Fear Podcast, Twitter at Ear for Fear, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Ear for Fear Podcast. You can also check out our website, earforfear.com. There we list news and events. We're available on all the main platforms, so make sure you tell a friend. We hope you come back. and get an earful.